Welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast, where strategic leaders get straight to the topics, strengthening our awareness and sharpening our minds. The Pen Leader Podcast is produced by Roar, a production division of Mays & Associates Ltd. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Now here is your award-winning host, Dr. Shanda Gore.
And welcome to the Pen Leader Podcast. Today we're going to be talking about lessons from the Great Lakes. And I'm so glad to have with me Kate Fineske, who is Executive Director of the Great Lakes Historical Society and its National Museum of the Great Lakes, where she leads one of the nation's fastest growing maritime museums. She holds a bachelor's degree from the University of Toledo and an MBA with an emphasis in nonprofit management from Lourdes University, and brings more than 20 years of experience in nonprofit leadership, communications, education, and community engagement. Since joining the museum in 2019 and becoming executive director in 2024, Kate has helped guide the organization through a period of significant growth, including a major expansion and national recognition. Under her leadership, the museum was recently named the number 2 maritime museum in the nation by USA Today readers and received the Ohio Museum Association's Institution of the Year Award and Best Exhibition Award. A passionate advocate for history, arts, and culture and the Great Lakes, she is dedicated to advancing the museum's vision of becoming the gathering place for the Great Lakes conversations. She describes herself as a lifelong learner, proud Toledoan and devoted wife and mother, and someone who believes that doing hard things is one of the best ways to grow, both personally and professionally, which is so true amongst our leadership. So without further ado, welcome, Kate.
Thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you. So we're going to get right into what we're talking about here, which is this wonderful waterways and the Great Lakes themselves. And you've been recognized on so many awards. How do you recognize and maximize those assets that we have, that leaders learn more about those assets and how they can help promote them? So how do you leverage that?
Yeah, I think leveraging anything is really about making people aware of it. I will show a perfect example of our downtown and the Maumee River, which for years and years and years in downtown Toledo, where the museum is located, the waterway was just, you didn't see it. There were buildings in front of it. It was industry. There wasn't anything happening down there. And, when you start to open people's eyes up to the waterway and get them to see it, they start to be curious and get interested in it. And that's what we try to do at the National Museum of the Great Lakes. We try to get people curious. When you first drive over the beautiful bridge that crosses the Maumee River, if you look over to your right-hand side, you can see our huge 617-foot lake freighter. It's orange and green, and you cannot miss it. And when you come and visit us at the National Museum of the Great Lakes, you just get to experience that. You get to walk on board and imagine what it could be like on a lake freighter.
It's very obvious to me about your passion toward what you are leading, especially, I know that I've heard you speak. It exudes that, again, really value what you have and knowing that the Great Lakes is unique. It's the only place like this in the world. Would you agree?
I would absolutely agree. It's so cool. It's pretty neat to be in, a part of institution that really is allowing people to understand something that they don't, the resources that we have because of the Great Lakes, people don't understand how much it gives us. And it's really, truly valuable. Fresh water, it's becoming more and more a hot commodity. And we don't understand how fortunate we are to have that right outside our backyard, right?
Mm-hmm. Agreed. What leadership qualities are most critical for the Great Lakes? And we're going to talk about those captains navigating the uncertainty and risk. So it really is an analogy, I think, for a number of people who are leading their own ships out there in their corporations. And, again, what do you see there?
I think, first of all, when you see Great Lakes captains, it's not just the captain, it's the team, it's the crew. And so I think that's one of the biggest things that you can learn from Great Lakes captains is that you're not, one person. You are the people that you surround yourself with, and you really need a good team to make it work. That's just really important as a leader.
Mm-hmm. Especially through those stormy weather times.
Sure.
Which I know there's a number of those that going through that in organizations, right?
Yeah, there always is. It's funny I became the executive director about 2.5 years ago, and It was new to me. I mean, if you had told me even a decade ago that I was going to be leading the National Museum of the Great Lakes, I would have looked at you and said, "What are you talking about?" I joined the team in 2019, and I rose up to become the executive director. And it was interesting. I did something that I think, some people don't always take the time to do, but I really journaled my way through my first couple of years. On LinkedIn, I wrote a series called Leadership Out Loud.
I remember reading that.
Yeah, for
Yes.
one time a month, for 2 years, I completely wrote the hardships, what I faced and the struggles, and I think that's really important for people to understand that in leadership in general, you are always gonna be facing struggles, and you can't pretend like it's not happening. It is, and I think we all face them.
I was thinking about this too from a historical, because you just went back in time and you just said, listen, journaling actually documents something that moves along. And who knows, maybe one day it might turn into a book. I think it's great. So I'm encouraging. But how do you keep historical institution and information relevant, especially to a new generation that may not know or understand?
Yeah, well, what people don't think about is history is happening every single day. What's happening today is tomorrow's history. So you really need to connect people to what's happening today and make them realize that this is what history is going to be coming. This is the future ahead. And that's really how we've tried to connect people with history. We also are really trying hard to connect people with history through experiences. So I mentioned our Colonel James M. Schoonmaker Museum ship, a 617-foot lake freighter. You can fully experience it, get on board, go into the galleys, go down to the engine room, go up to the pilot house and, pretend like you were steering it through a storm. But really, it's those experiences that you have, whether on board our museum ship or within the museum space itself. That's really what helps to, educate, inspire, and tell people that history is all around them.
I think you really lead into my next question, which is about innovation.
Mhm.
Because I think how individuals might have experienced it 10, 15 years ago and where we are going so that you can do more immersion experiences, which I've heard you talk about that and the hopes and dreams of how we move forward. What innovations have helped the museum expand its reach and its impact?
Yeah, I think, we've expanded our reach incredibly. And a lot of that has to do with this idea that you can experience the Great Lakes where you're at. I always love to look at people's face the first time they walk into the museum because they don't realize what they're coming into. They think they're going to kind of walk into this small little, maybe rinky dink, maritime museum. And all of a sudden they're in a Smithsonian quality museum, seeing these experiences, feeling history around them, getting to engage in it. And it's for all ages. I mean, so, marketing, being able to communicate what's happening, that's the way you reach people. But it's really the experiences, I think, that brings them that much closer to what you're trying to share.
I think the experiences, and I think you also do a great job of capturing the stories. What stories from the museum continue to inspire the visitors who come and see this?
Yeah. Oh, there's so many stories. I hate when people ask me to narrow it down to one. I will tell you, one of my favorite ways to start people's visit off at the museum is within our Maritime Theater. Right as soon as you enter, you really get to feel the Great Lakes around you, from thunder and lightning that goes off ahead of you to the big waves and the shipwrecks and really understanding some of the data that's connected to it. It really gives a good overview of what the museum is. Great, great experience. Another new experience that we have within our new expansion, though, is the pilot house of the St. Mary's Challenger. So you can not, in the middle of the winter, it's a little bit harder to get on site in our museum vessels. They are actually closed 6 months out of the year, even though the museum is open all year round. Over the summer months, 7 days a week, we now have a pilot house that's attached to the interior of our museum space. It's fully accessible. And when you go on board, you can feel like you're out in the middle of the water sailing, and it's really incredible.
See, there's one thing that we were talking offline, and I want to make sure to bring this again to everyone's attention. One of the things you start off right away is you talk about planning. and that strategic planning, that you are intentional about what you're doing and
Mhm.
how you have this vision to move forward. Can you talk about how that has impacted your pathway and your team?
Yeah, I am all about a good strategic plan. And the museum didn't really have one before I came. And so that was one of the first things I wanted to do when I came on board, especially as the executive director. We have a 5-year strategic plan. One of the best things I did was put a 5-year financial plan together as well, too, that we're able to look back and year after year when we're setting the budget. I'm just about to go into my next budgeting process. We do that in July and go through the entire process. It allows me to say, okay, this is what I set for this next year two of the strategic plan. How are we going to get there? And then for this past year, we actually were able to surpass it. We brought in a little bit extra money than we thought we were going to have. I could look ahead and say, okay, this is something that we were going to spend money on year 2 or year 3. Let's do that now because we know it's in the plan, in the budget, and how we're going to be planning out. So strategic planning has been really, really important to how our museum has seen and realized growth. And it's also allowed me to make really easy decisions when it comes to, are we going to move forward with something?
So I know that some individuals would say, even from a corporate, because again, we're talking about a nonprofit organization with a strong plan. But I've got some for-profits that not quite have a strong strategic plan. They're trying to figure it out, and I think that makes you a little wayward, right? It feels like, again, if you're the captain of the ship, you need to have to know where you're
You need to
going.
have a plan, especially when you're dealing with so many other ways of resources coming in. We are a 50C nonprofit, bringing in funds in a little bit different ways, though, which is wonderful because we have a diverse amount of ways to bring in funding. We don't receive any local, state, or federal funding whatsoever for our operations, but we have this three-legged stool. We relied on earned revenue from our museum visitors, from our museum store, from rentals. Then we also rely on fundraising. And then on top of the fundraising, we also have this membership gap that kind of bridges the two. So our members are also our donors, and they're also our museum store purchasers and our rental users. And it really makes for a diverse way for us to be able to bring in income and grow income. And that's what a strategic plan is all about, like figuring out how you can grow and grow your visitors, grow, the people that are engaging with you, whether you're a nonprofit or a for-profit, it's all about growing. And that's what the strategic plans really helped us to do.
Can you explore that a little bit more too, because you have growth in these different ways? And I always talk about a three-legged stool as well. I mean, how important it is to diversify your revenue, Can you talk to what that means for your team and how they view on, especially with the concentrated areas?
Yeah, what's great is it doesn't put the sole pressure on any one person. I think a lot of times the fundraiser receives a lot of the pressure, and there is a lot of, pressure on everybody, to continue to go up. But when you're working together to raise these funds, we can, get funds because we're advertising or we're getting more visitors that are coming in because they know that we're there. We can get more funds from having events that bring people in specifically for those events. We can get more funds from people that are doing rentals in the space. And what happens when people do rentals, they bring more people, they see the space and they say, I want to come back and I want to visit the space, or I want to share and talk about the space. You can also do some things that are really unique and interesting, and your folks together work on this. So our visitor engagement team is really working hard to produce and make a welcoming environment for everybody, but also to create an experience that people are just wowed by. And I really think that it's that experience, that uniqueness of being the one and only National Museum of the Great Lakes that's allowed us to grow different revenue streams, like the cruise industry that started to come and visit us here in Toledo. And it had been decades since we had seen cruise ships here in Toledo. And so we had our first cruise ship visit us here last year. And that has grown to 9 cruise vessels that are visiting here in Toledo this year, along with premium shore excursions from cruise vessels that are docking in Detroit. And people are paying extra money to drive a bus 40 minutes from Detroit to Toledo just to see the National Museum of the Great Lakes. So you really work as a team as a whole to find all those different little pockets. And when something goes down, we don't have a great annual fund year, or we don't get membership where we need to, we have these other legs that we can start to rely on and say, okay, how can we move that needle a little bit differently?
I think this is powerful about partnerships and building relationships. And again, Kate, I would commend you on that. You have done that. You are looking for those external partners
Mhm.
who have a vested, like if one wins, another one is winning. And I think all boats rise. Am I right?
Yes, you absolutely do. And we actually created, with a part of our strategic plan, we did new core values. And one of our primary core values that we've started our focus on is all about partnership. We think about partnership in everything we do. This year, my leadership team is actually working on a partnership document so that we can have all of our partners in one area and start to develop a process that we can do continuously to make sure that we're not forgetting partners, that we're following up with partners, that we're not losing out on something, an opportunity that maybe we could have had. And we're thinking about how partners really make a difference. Truly amazing, unique example of that is our recent temporary exhibit that we just opened called Currents of Change. It's an ecological history of the Great Lakes, and it's an incredible opportunity for us to use our partners. We worked with anyone from the EPA to the University of Toledo Center for Great Lakes to the Bowling Green Watershed Department to, just a million different partners. And then after we reached out with these partners, we were able to highlight these partners within that area and send them communication that lets them know we're not just partnering with you, we're resharing your information over and over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
And it creates a good community of support that is based on mutual admiration.
Yes.
You are helping each other out. And I find that partnership goes a lot further.
Mm-hmm.
When there's not just benefits, but people are proud to be a part of a partnership.
Mm-hmm. No, I would say, when you understand how you can leverage others' resources, instead of working in a competition, we're working collaboratively because we can get it's about the whole community
Yeah.
as you're also meeting your goals.
Yep.
And there's nothing selfish about that. You got to meet expectations.
Well, we have a huge goal to double our visitation by 2029. We have been growing steadily. We actually have doubled our operating budget from 2019 to 2026. And we're not huge, but we're punching above our class. So we had about just under a $1 million operating budget in 2019 when I joined the museum. We're now over a $2 million operating budget. And quite honestly, I want to keep growing that. I think that we need to be closer to an $8 to $10 million operating budget to really realize where we need to be from a spending standpoint, from advertising to get those visitations in. But again, growing and doubling that visitation from 32,000 visitors, which was the highest we had last year, to over 60,000 visitors by 2020.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So, well, now comes the fun part of this, which you probably still have questions, but I just want to make sure because you have so much historical information. You're a very sharp leader, your experience, and you got that educate. You're always educating. You know your details. But what are you reading and what are you watching to relax?
Oh, goodness. I read all the time. I actually listen to a lot of podcasts. I listen to a lot of audiobooks. I listen to so many books, though, that sometimes it's hard. And I just pull in the stories into my brain. What am I watching? Oh, God, I was even prepared for this question. And now I'm like, it's funny. We watch a lot of different things. We actually just got done watching Michael last night.
Oh,
The Michael Jackson movie. We rented it. And then Netflix has this, it's called The Four Seasons. It's like a mini, I don't know. We're in the second season of the whole thing. And we've been watching that a little bit too. We watch a ton of different stuff. So yeah, when I want to veg, I'm either reading a book, I'm listening to a podcast, or we're vegging and we're watching a movie or a show.
well, I will say this. I'm so glad you're one of our listeners. I appreciate you and I appreciate you coming on the show and really sharing that because I know how important it is to get the word out. And we have listeners from all over the world. So if you're thinking about coming to visit, what should they do?
Oh, well, of course, you need to visit the National Museum of the Great Lakes. If you want to learn more about the National Museum of the Great Lakes, you can visit us online at nmgl.org. That stands for National Museum of the Great Lakes. We actually have virtual tours of our museum ships on there. We have our entire event schedule on there. You can really learn a lot just about the Great Lakes. We have some blog posts and all sorts of history happening on there. But come and visit us in Toledo. We have the best view of downtown Toledo and just an extraordinary museum.
Yes, I can actually attest to that because I've been on that view, and I think it's wonderful, and especially if you're military and sailor. We have a sailor in the family. It really warms the heart to see it and to really leverage the wonderful resource that we have here. So thank you so much for coming on the show, Kate.
Oh, thank you for having me.
And thank you to our listeners who are sharing the show and liking it. We appreciate you. Thank you to our sponsor, Mavalino Custom Home Builders, where they build custom homes with superior quality, value, and integrity. And also, we'd like to thank the Maine Intelligence Network. Come be part of a focused network of entrepreneurs, leaders, executives, and others committed to sharpening leadership and strategy while scaling ventures with intention. This is a place where practical thinking meets high caliber connection. Check out the Maine at www.mainesassociatesltd.com. And of course, until next time.
The Pen Leader podcast is hosted by Dr. Shanda Gore and brought to you by Mays & Associates Ltd, creating customized solutions for growth in the areas of leadership development, strategic planning, and culture building. Find out more at www.maysassociatesltd.com. Don't forget to subscribe to the Pen Leader podcast and share with others.